One, two, three. Oh, welcome to My Agreements with Me for Believers. Thank you. Welcome this morning. It's beautiful. And I'm going to use my English accent this morning. So, no, just kidding. This is
I'm
not
like,
going the way
yes,
that
do it.
no, this is the way we're going. So, okay. Actually, welcome to My Agreements with Me for Believers. My name is Ray Tuggle. We will be covering effective use of time, lesson 30. And I have two great, incredible partners in crime here, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Castillo.
I'm Desiree Duran.
And I'm Ray Tuggle. And so we're going to go and actually do what we always do, which is really just, first of all, have fun. And hopefully you guys are having fun as well. But what we want to do is effective use of time. We're going to go and actually pray before we begin, and then we'll get and give you some life nuggets and things to take home for you. So, all right, let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for this awesome day. Thank you for the breath that we breathe in our lungs, and just again, giving thanks to you. We're going to be covering today just effective use of time. So we pray, God, that anyone who's listening, that God, that this will be applicable to them, and that they'll be able to find nuggets that will allow them to be better with their time and to understand the value of why this is important and how this lesson can apply to their life. So we thank you. We ask you that you prepare the hearts to receive, and that we prepare us to be able to go and actually provide nuggets that will just be a little bit of wisdom and to help everyone who's here today. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
And so, yeah, so effective use of time. This is something that I did really well in the military. And however, when I got out, I'm like, ooh, like, how do I do this without being told what to do? And so this was not something that that this lesson for me was really important, because when I didn't have a crutch, I didn't have someone telling me what to do, I really just kind of like fell apart for a while, you know. So what
how that would be easy to do that. Yeah, that no structure. You're like, it's a free for all now. Nobody's telling me what to do.
yeah.
Well,
So for
even
you,
coming from childhood, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Like even coming from childhood to adulthood, like now what do? Because you're in school, you're regimented on a schedule. And I know for me, like that was even complicated. I wasn't as regimented as military like you, Ray, but definitely, it was a struggle. Like, what do I do now with this time? I have all of this time, right? So you have to find a job, and then I don't know. It's a very good lesson we're about to dive into.
Yeah, I mean, I always heard that, we have so many 624 hours in a week or whatever, or I think is it a week or month? I'm not. I got to add it up. I wasn't good at math. They changed the Common Core math, so now I'm all of a sudden I'm all messed up. So yeah, 24 hours in a day. Obviously, we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and being able to track what we do is one of those things that we talked about, even with habits, right? Understanding where do you put your time. That was something for me I didn't really have to do because it was being done for me. So I agree with you that it is something that when you start to look at it, you kind of like have your eyes wide open. You start realizing, wow, I mean, I wasted this much time, or I put my time there and it's effective. I love that verse though in Ephesians 5:16. It says, don't waste your time on useless work, mere busy work, to barren pursuits of darkness. Express these things for the shame they are. It's a scandal when people waste their lives on things. So I think that verse right there is pretty indicative of the fact of, busy work. And how many times you talk to somebody and they say, oh, I'm woo busy, just really, and so they don't have time for their kids. They're not giving time for, quality time to their spouse or whatever. So, I mean, this affects us, right? I mean, in our interpersonal relationships, and also reflects on who we are, how we're showing up.
Do you think this is a little bit different message of the world too? Like I've met people and coaches that they're like, you have to structure every single minute of your day. And I get that. And at the same time, but that doesn't leave time for me to just be open to have a vulnerable conversation with someone who might be in the need of prayer or connection or things like that. So it's, really interesting. I
think there's a good balance, and I'll use this example. And granted, I only know how to talk to the time that I was in the military. I had this open door policy because I wanted to be accessible. I wanted to be open. And however, what I found is that people were just coming in all the time, and I wasn't getting anything done because I was serving others instead of actually really taking care of my own needs. And what you'll find is I find that a lot of moms do this. They're serving everyone else, but they're not taking care of their own needs because there's not those boundaries we talked about. So I decided to set up an invisible boundary. And you're like, what invisible boundary can you set? Well, I still had an open door policy. However, when they came in, I would ask them just one question. I would say, okay, is this fact-based or is this fact-based, non-emotional? And most of the time, what you're going to find is people are coming in on an emotional level to get and actually have you solve something or just talk about themselves or something instead of actually look for something you can help them with. So when I say, hey, is this fact-based or emotional? They had to think about it and they're like, okay. And so I went from probably 70% of the people coming in talking about how they wanted to feel about what they were going through instead of coming in asking me for really, no kidding, advice and solution. So, I mean, my open door policy worked because only people who were coming to ask for something that I could help them with versus telling me something that was emotional, took them out. This is a very good lead in because a lot of times our effective use of time is driven by emotion. It's not driven by really thinking about it, because in order to be effective, you have to think about it. You have to actually execute it. And so emotion, though, kind of like runs the gamut because you're thinking about everyone else. You're thinking about how you feel about it. It's getting up your head. You're creating stories. And so this is really, really important.
That is so spot on with especially family and friends. Because a lot of the times, like my speech now is, are you coming for resolution or or am I just going to be your trash can? Because if I'm going to be your trash can, I don't have time for that. So you can look at yourself in the mirror, talk to yourself, and then listen to yourself and then figure that out.
Yeah.
Learning to separate, especially women, learning to separate. Okay, are you coming to me for advice for resolve? Or am I just your trash can? Are you just complaining and griping and murmuring and you just want to get it out? Don't take it out on me, because that also takes a great toll of energy on me. And then the effective use of time also means being depleted of that energy and not being able to be present with other things, because now I have all of their stuff in my head and I'm still trying to figure out things. Like, it's too much. It's too much. And so learning effective use of time, even with personal relationships, was so key. And I am still doing it where I have to, without sounding like I'm being mean or I don't care. It's just, I don't have the time for it. I just don't,
Yeah. And I think back to Sylvia's point about, if I'm regimented and I'm actually scheduling all these in, then really the authenticity piece kind of gets lost too, because you're not allowing things to be fluid and natural. And so like a friend needs you, they call and say, hey, look, can we talk? And you're like, well, I don't have that. Let me get back to you. Well, guess what? They needed you then, right? Or your children or your spouse. And so I can relate to that because that's how I really was when I got out. I was just very like, hey, I got to get order, right? Because that's all I was used to is order. And unfortunately, even being in the military, when I went home, I just wanted order. Guess what? Well, I mean, my wife at the time, was basically going through in chaos, right? Dealing with the kids, dealing with work, doing all the other stuff. And I'm expecting this order. Like, I mean, come on, like sometimes, she just needs me to just be there and listen. And we don't need to worry about all the stuff that needs to be picked up. Or, so my point is, it's the partnership, right? It's the piece about being available and being present. And I think that's going to conflict sometimes with being very structured.
Yeah, it's a balance for sure. Absolutely. And then effective use of time for me also reminds me of even what am I spending my time doing? Like we talked in the last conversation about, people even doing this work and it's like, well, I don't have time to do it. Well, what are you trading your time for? Are you sitting watching, hours and hours of binge watching on YouTube or, Netflix or whatever? Or do you have a purpose? Have you put together your life plan and your vision, which we talked about in lesson 1? And is that what you're spending your time on? So I think just being accountable to what you're doing with your time is actually, the process of that too. Really looking at that.
Well, I love it because we cover in your vision, you're going to be covering relationships and connections. So that's going to be part of your vision. So you're going to find strategies and ways to fit that into your schedule and find that into ways to be purposeful with it. So I think that's why it's so important to have that. But when you don't have that though, Sylvia, you don't have a vision for your life of those areas or those things for your life. You tend to kind of put where you almost like need to, or you think that you need to, and you start living your life by I have to versus I get to. And so this is very important to, when you I think when you start knowing that you're in balance is you get to start coming from the get to. When you know you're out of balance, you go into the I have to, because that becomes the fireman perspective of putting out fires and keeping up, and not enough time, and out of, we use the word control, out of control. And so when you find someone who's more at peace, you're going to find language changes too.
Yeah. Oh, so true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
A girlfriend of mine, I'll share the story. So, I'm really blessed with a lot of friends. And so, but in that, there's always something going on. There is always something happening. And so I would always try to I'm like, they show up for me. I want to show up for them. What I was finding, I was so depleted that I couldn't show up for everybody all the time because I had my own life. And so one of my girlfriends, she's like, so it was just a random conversation. She's like, what are you doing this weekend? And I'm breaking it all down. She's like, oh my gosh, no wonder why you're so tired. Like, how do you fit all of that in and still maintain? And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, you're doing too much. She goes, I'm tired just listening to what you're doing. And so I had to think about that because that was so profound. And this just happened a couple of months ago. And I'm like, yeah, why do I feel like I need to show up? Like I'm obligated to show up. I have to be effective in my time of use, like be my effective use of time so that I can still be present in my life, my central core, my partner and my kids. And so once I started doing that, like one of my girlfriends, she's like, it was her birthday and she wanted to go out at 9 o'clock at night on a Thursday. And I'm like, okay, I'll be there. And then as the week was going, I'm like, who am I kidding? I'm in bed at like 8 o'clock. Like there's no way I'm walking out this door at 8:30. And so I felt bad because I agreed, but then I'm like, I agreed because I felt obligated. So I'm like, we will celebrate you another time. There's no way. I will be no good to anybody. And then try to get to work the next day and still handle my life. Like, no way. So I just have to be more mindful. So I'm not sticking to my commitments, but
see, I think you said the key word there, obligated, right?
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
So what I find is that a lot of people, well, okay, I'll give you an example. I'm coaching a client right now, a very high-end client who's really just driven, yet she struggled with the word saying no, okay? Because she felt obligated to appease or please other people. And so, when it came down to it, she wasn't appeasing and pleasing herself. And so, obligation is a huge, it's kind of like loyalty. Those are two very, very careful words that people fall trapped to, because be careful who you're loyal to, okay, and also be careful who you're obligated to. And so, however, if your friend, if you just said, if you knew this early on, right, or if we knew this early on to be able to communicate differently, then it wouldn't be halfway through the week we're struggling with, I really know I said that, but however, I'm not really truly in agreement with that, because I know that, like, I need my sleep, I need my rest, I need my whatever, and that's that self-care,
And in all fairness, there was never a time. So when I reached out, I'm like, what is the plan? She's like, oh, it starts at 9. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
Yeah, it's huge.
I had this dinner, but
yeah. It's definitely all applicable. And I think one of the key things is to really know when to, say yes and when to say no, and mean what you say, and that where it's congruent for you, So I think that's huge.
And I agree.
And even effective use of time in our spiritual walk. The truth is that do we, like Sylvia was saying, there's many people that go to church, on Sunday, and they might read the Bible once. However, that is not going to, I was watching a real quick video that was talking about, these people breaking into their house. Would you let people break into your house? And they're like, of course not. Like, I would protect my house. I would protect my family. Yet at the same time, what we're doing is we're not protecting ourselves spiritually, because we're allowing all these things to come in and allowing these things to happen, and we're not doing anything about it. So we're the bystander in our life, when we could actually be, taking ownership of our life and incorporating effective use of time to be in the Word, to get and actually develop that relationship. Because anything that you don't spend time doing effectively, or purposefully, you don't really have a relationship of intimacy with that relationship.
So we have a chapter in the book or a piece in the book, and it says, how can you apply effective use of time? And the first one is wake up early because it makes your day longer. The second one is set SMART, meaning it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound goals. Don't just wish, do it. And then there's some other ones, block distractions, which, oh my gosh, that is huge. Block distractions, get them out of your life. No multitasking, as it is a facade. Quality over quantity. I'm going to stop on that one. Like, that is huge. I mean, I think for women, for moms, I know there are men out there who can multitask. However, I don't think usually I find that men are just, give me a project, let me zone in it, and I'm done. They're a one and done. Where women were like, we can take on the world, and we can cook and clean and do laundry and work, and rear the kids while walking the dog and taking a nap. Like, we feel like we can do all of that. And I think that's why women are really more prone to heart attacks and high stress and strokes, because we need to give ourselves permission to slow down and be more like a man and just do one task at a time, because it is quality over quantity. And it's like, if you're talking to your spouse over something important and your children are always interrupting, how much quality are you getting out of that conversation? You're not. You're all over the place, right? And so I think that quality over no more multitasking.
Yeah, I think boundaries are huge there.
Yeah. And take small breaks frequently to refresh and to rejuvenate. I've been doing that lately, you guys. Like, I literally will just go out in my backyard and I'll just plant my feet in the grass and I'll lay down for like 10 minutes. And the only one who bothers me is my dog, and he'll come and just sniff around and then he'll lay down with me. And it has been so life-changing in bringing down those levels of stress. Or if I'm feeling anxious, I'll go out and I'll do that, and it has worked wonders.
Well, it's a great way to get grounded. I mean, truthfully, you need to set yourself apart, and being in nature, I mean, it's a great way to do that. And especially being grounded to the earth. I mean, that's a really good grounding tool anyway, or just listening to, closing your eyes and allowing just to hear the wind or feel it. Those are important. And I think those are really great. I think one of the things too, another good tool is, when we were talking about scheduling everything out. However, I do find that it's very valuable to really track what you do on your day. So, I had to realize that, like, where am I spending my time? And when I took that time to, the book 64 Habits, really did help in that regard for me, because I started tracking, the hours that I spent for the week, and I realized how much time I was wasting or doing things that weren't really serving me towards my vision. And so unless you check it, like someone who's not counting calories or finding what they're putting in their body, or vice versa, not tracking reps or whatever they're doing, everything comes down to tracking, comes down to just taking an assessment, right? And looking at basically, where are you putting your time? And so how can you know effective use of time if you don't know where you put your time and where where that's going to go, what it matters. So
that's good. That's a great suggestion. Yeah. I like that. I'm going to try that.
It's just an amount, like, I do it like once a month to go next, you really just fine tune, like, where am I really putting my time? And because, like we talked about, I got a lot of things going on, and the more stuff that you have in your life, especially guys, if you're, a mom, a wife, doing all these other things, or a husband and kids and, whatever that is, we oftentimes default one to the other. And the truth of the matter is that it's also a great way of also giving yourself accolades that you do a lot of things to be the person that you are. And so, most people don't collect evidence so that they can reinforce in their subconscious this great person that they are. Okay. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll believe the lies, though, and say that I'm less than, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, blah, 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 blah. Yet if you really put it on paper and you really actually looked and took an analysis, you'll realize that you are doing a lot more than you think you are. and you're more effective sometimes than you think you are. And
Yeah.
sometimes you'll realize that you're not as effective as you really would like to be.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that having a tool to do that with too, and you know, in one of the things I do, it's called pie time. It's like looking at those different places in your life. Like, what am I doing that is helping my goal? What are money making activities, if it's in business, or, you know, am I relaxing, or am I like exact in 24 hours? That'd be actually a great challenge, you know, like looking at the past 24 hours or even the past week, and what actually was spent working on your vision or working in your business, or what was wasted, you know, and then you told other people you didn't have time or you weren't able to do it. It's like taking total responsibility and accountability for your time. So I love that as a tool also.
That would be a great exercise, honestly, for this for this lesson, you know.
I agree.
Yeah. I know it's helped me, and I know that, you know, and that wasn't my idea. That was something I actually, you know, learned. And so you know, and honestly, we do that in the military all the time. You know, it's basically just operational awareness. You know, where are you putting your time? You know, and then a lot of people have made money and businesses out of it to help people with that, you know. So
Perfect.
And I love what it says. So what if you applied effective use of time? What if you paid attention to who or what you said yes to? Would your circle of influence look different? What if you were more cognizant of who occupied your time and attention? Would you be further along towards your vision of what you really want? What if you were disciplined in your time management? Would you be more confident while reaping the rewards? How would your life be different in the future?
yeah.
Man, that's profound. Those are great questions to ask and to answer for yourself. And I mean, if you do the challenge, that 24 hours of just writing down what you've done with your day, how you've done it, I think those questions would be very clear on what you're doing with your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do with my coaching clients. A lot of times we would create the I am statements. You know, I am, let's just put it this way. You know, I had a guy who, for the most part, thinks he's a terrible husband, right? So we created a statement of, I want to be, you know, I am a loving, caring husband. Okay. And then the key was for him to get and actually track throughout the week where he was doing that, evidence, you know, that he was actually being that. And the truth of the matter is he was being that a lot. And he was just like, wow, like, I cannot believe this, because what he was doing is he's sabotaging that particular identity in himself. And as he built the evidence, he started to get a lot more clear and a lot more confident that he was that. And remember, when you change, everything else changes. So when he changed that, all of a sudden his perception of his wife changed, so that it wasn't her that needed to change, it was him that needed to change. And his relationship with his wife got a lot better because he had a better relationship with himself, you know, of understanding who he was and also giving himself credit. A lot of times, you know, we're really good at beating ourselves up and also depleting ourselves from comparing ourselves to everyone else. And that's what he was doing. He was comparing himself to this elder that was in the church that he didn't even really know. He just assumed how he was treating his wife in the few instances that he saw her in him. And so we can easily start doing that. So the effective use of time can be like, I think on the back of what we used here was my obstacles. You know, what are the obstacles that stop you from using your effective use of time? Well, when you have your eyes on everyone else, you know, and what everyone else is doing, you surely aren't looking at what you're doing, and you're not also taking into account the great things that you possibly are already doing, you know, as far as that goes too.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, you might be surprised. You might be like, oh, well, I am. It's not, you know, you may not be doing too much. You may be like, oh, okay, this is good. I spent a great deal of time doing what I loved and what was important for my growth and for my lifestyle. You know, it may just, you might have a happy surprise.
Yeah, well, my son's wife, you know, my daughter-in-law, she was having a hard time with Grayson, who's now 12, who has a little bit of this going on, right? And so he was disrespectful. And so she was like, okay, well, I tell you what, I want you to go and actually tell me, you know, well, I'm not disrespectful. Okay, well, I believe that you have been very disrespectful. And so she basically started doing the same thing of collecting evidence of when he was disrespectful. And so that when he saw the evidence, okay, it was very, because facts tell, stories sell. So when he understood the facts, he couldn't dispute those, okay, without getting emotional. Of course, he couldn't dispute them and realize, wow, I guess, okay, I am that. I have been doing that. So it's a great awareness tool in just many ways to realize that, you know, where we use our time, what we say, how we say it, all this stuff, you know, is so applicable. So, yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, very good. It sounds like that wraps up our lesson 30 on effective use of time. We look forward to seeing you all in the next lesson.
Yes, definitely. Well, take care and have a good week.
All right. Bye.